Ants, automatic negative thoughts. William Nicholls here, and today we will be getting into the infestation of your brain right now with ants. Automatic negative thoughts, or ants, are the negative momentum of thought through your brain on a daily basis. So according to researchers and neuroscientists, we think approximately 60,000 thoughts per day. I personally believe it's a lot more than that. But that's what they say. They say 60,000 thoughts per day. And out of those 60,000 thoughts, 45,000, get that, 45,000, okay, over two-thirds of those thoughts are negative. So as you go about your day, thinking, as we do every moment, every second, two-thirds of your time is spent in a negative daze of negative momentum, allowing the ants to infect you, infest you, and there's a serious problem. So we're going to get into how to exterminate the ants and how to overcome this problem, because it is a significant problem. Not only do we have the mental and emotional toll and the exhaustion of dealing with the overwhelming automatic negative thoughts as we go about our day, but we also have the physiological effects. Negative thoughts create a stress response in the body. What this does is it jacks up cortisol, it jacks up adrenaline, increases our stress hormones. And what that does is it decreases the good hormones like testosterone in men and progesterone and estrogen in women. And it increases our counteracting hormones. Men also have progesterone and estrogen, just like women have testosterone. And while women do need a bit of testosterone, when they get stressed, testosterone spikes. And for men, it's the opposite. Testosterone gets depleted when we are extremely stressed. So it creates a chemical hormonal imbalance in the body. Not only does it mess with our hormones, it also messes with a very important chemical called immunoglobulin. And immunoglobulin, IgB, is the core component that basically supports our immune system. So that means that when you think a really stressful thought or you experience an episode of stress, you are actually deactivating your immune system for up to 72 hours. So this physiological effect that it has on the body can be detrimental. This is why people that are really stressed out, their skin's bad, they ache, they have usually muscle and skeletal problems. They also usually get sick very often. They're always, you always hear the people that are like, oh, I'm always sick, I'm always sick. And eventually this can lead to autoimmune problems. So you got to get this in check. You got to exterminate the ants, my friends. Okay, you can't let these ants just be crawling up in that brain of yours. You need to overcome this. And in order to overcome it, you have to do really two things. But the first thing that you need to do is you need to question the thoughts that you're having in your head. When you're constantly living in a stressed out state, when you're constantly stressed and you're constantly overwhelmed and you're constantly thinking about this and that and going wrong here and going wrong there, what happened in the past, what's happening in the future that hasn't really happened yet, both of which do not exist, because the only thing that's happening is what's here now, and you're bringing those stresses, the imaginary stress of the future and the sort of ghost of the past, into this present moment, and you're ruining your life. And like I said, the average person, over two-thirds of their thoughts are negative. The average person. Which means there's people that probably there's like 50,000 of those 60,000 or 55,000 of those 60,000 are negative thoughts, which is very unfortunate. And the good thing is, though, it's a rather simple process to overcome. But the first thing you need to understand before we get into the actual practical nitty-gritty destroying and squashing the ants is this idea of momentum. So when you are overwhelmed by a bunch of negative thoughts, you create a sort of negative momentum in your life. If you think about just like the 45,000 negative thoughts compared to the 15,000 positive thoughts, that's a huge difference. I mean, it's over 2/3 negative, which means that the negative momentum of your thoughts are going to heavily outweigh the positive momentum of whatever positive thoughts you're having. And because of that, those negative thoughts are going to eventually get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, that 45,000 negative thoughts is going to turn into 48,000, 50,000, 55,000, and so on. Until basically your life is just one big negative mess. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to get there because we only have one life. This is our only life. We do not have another life that, maybe there's past lives or some nonsense like that. But that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what's happening here now. So we need to take care of what's going on here by addressing the automatic negative thoughts. And the first thing that you need to do is not believe every negative thought that you have. One of the biggest problems that people have is that they've created an identity, an entire self-image around their negative thinking. So it's like if you have 45,000 negative thoughts and you're doing that every single day, well, a thought repeated becomes a belief. Okay, a thought repeated becomes a belief. So what that means is the more thoughts you think around a similar concept, right? Maybe you're constantly picking at how you look. You're constantly picking about your weight. You're constantly, sort of whatever your sort of neurosis is around yourself, whatever part of yourself you like to really bring down and destroy. If you think that enough times, you're going to start to believe it. And once you start to believe it, it becomes your normal. It becomes your baseline. It becomes your default. It's your default program. And so a lot of these negative thoughts, by the way, aren't even coming from you. They're just ideas that have come from the past or neurosis and anxiety towards the future that you've just accepted as your own. So questioning what's going on in your life is very, very important. You need to be able to question, what am I thinking right now? Is this actually true? The more you actually start to question that, the more you realize, no, it's not. These things are not true. And the more you realize that the negative thoughts that you experience are not true, the more you can disassociate from those negative thoughts. And the more you disassociate from them, the more in control you will become, and the greater your ability will be to be able to actually create a positive flow of momentum, right? Because you want to be counteracting the negative with the positive. You want to balance it out, and eventually you're creating a positive momentum that's so strong that it's carrying you forward in the future. Pessimism literally kills you. I mean, stress is the #1 killer. We know this. Stress increases your cortisol levels, which deactivates your immune system. This has huge and serious negative epigenetic effects, which means it literally impacts your DNA. Not only that, you're way more at risk for heart disease. You're way more at risk for hypertension. You're way more at risk for brain aneurysms and stress-related illnesses, autoimmune disease, you name it. Okay, cancer, and so on and so forth. Because what you're saying to your body when you're in stress all the time and you're allowing these negative thoughts to rule you, that's what's happening, they're ruling you, is you're saying that I'm not in control. And you are in control. But it requires some education. It requires some awareness. It requires you to get to the truth. So it really comes down to first principles thinking, right? It's just, is this true? I would guarantee you that the majority of your negative thoughts are not true at all. If not all of them, right? Most of them, at least, are not true. If not all of them. How do I know this? Because I have negative thoughts too. We all do. But being aware and being able to question your thoughts, being able to say, is this really my thought? Is this really true? Is this really me? And saying, no, it's not. It's not true. It's not true. So I'm not going to listen to it. And then you ask the question, the follow-up question to that is, well, what is true? Right? If I believe that I'm not good enough my whole life, well, what is true? Well, the truth, if it's incorrect and it's untrue that I'm not good enough, then the truth is that I am good enough. right? If it's incorrect that I am ugly, then the truth is I am beautiful, right? And it's starting to have this sort of dynamic with yourself. You're not playing the mind's games because you'll never win if you try and play the mind's games. You need to instead bring the mind into your territory, which is awareness. Because the mind's power really comes in through subconscious, right? The subconscious is the 99% of our power. It's where our beliefs are stored, our core traumas, our baseline conditioning. It is the default programming of who you are as an individual. So the mind, when it's playing in the subconscious, it has all its power, right? It's like, you're going up against Freddy Krueger in the dream world. Good luck. The only time you have the advantage is when you're in your own territory. And so you create that advantage by becoming more aware, by bringing these subconscious thoughts. Most of the thoughts are not conscious. Like, you're not consciously scanning through 60,000 thoughts a day, right? Half of it's going it's like neural networks and highways that are going so fast you couldn't even possibly comprehend how fast they're going, right? So all this is happening on the subconscious level, which means that you're not aware of what's going on until you start asking the question, is this true? Right? Most of the time you're aware when there's like a big enough thing going on. Like if there's a repetitive like thought process that you have, like I'm not good enough, I hate myself, I look ugly in this, I can't do this, I can't do that, I am this way. Those sorts of thoughts. Those sorts of thoughts that are repeated, I mean, they still can be difficult to bring to the surface, but for the most part, these are the thoughts that you're used to thinking, which can be tricky for some people because it's very difficult to be aware of something that's, just been going on here. Like, right? Most people, if they think about it, it's like you're not aware of your second toe. You know what I mean? Like for the most part, as you go about your day, like it's not like you're always aware of your second toe, right? It's like you're just walking down the street and you're just like, oh yes, I feel my second toe. It's like, no, you don't think about it. It's just subconscious. It's automatic. Now, if you put your attention on it, you could feel it and you could see that. Maybe if you have one, maybe you don't have one. Maybe you only have 9 toes. I don't know. But anyways, the point here is, until you bring these ideas into your awareness, you're not going to be able to stop the negative momentum. The ants are going to just do their thing, and you're going to suffer at the hand of that. And so in order to overcome this, you have to question and understand that you do not have to believe these thoughts. So that's first and foremost. And for a lot of people, that's going to be like a nice like relief. That's going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to believe my thoughts. It's like, no, it's actually better if you don't. You can learn from your thoughts, though, because your thoughts have just told you where you've been focusing most of your attention on for the last little while, right? It's like if you've got this bombardment of negative thoughts, and that tells you that's where I've been focusing my attention on the last little while. Versus if you have a bombardment of positive and optimistic thoughts, genuinely, most people don't, but genuinely, if that's your wiring and you've worked on that most of the time, then that's your orientation. That is the baseline. And so part of the big gist of getting over the ants is just understanding that you have to reset the baseline. You have to reset the default. And the default conditioning for you right now, if you're listening to this, is probably letting your mind overthink, overworry, overanalyze, riddle you with anxiety and negative thoughts, and it just feels like you're spiraling out of control. You can't sleep, your mind's up racing, right? That's how most people live. And most people never question. Most people go their whole lives and they never, ever question their thoughts. And so questioning your thoughts is really, really important. That's step one. The other step is being able to start to learn to drop your thoughts and to disassociate from them. So you have to question them because just having that permission, I don't have to believe my thoughts, is probably a big relief, like I said, for most of you. But for those who want to take it a step further and really tackle this negative momentum, because really what all that automatic thoughts are just negative momentum. I mean, you just created enough thought momentum in the wrong direction. And all you need to do is now shift that into the right direction. What's the right direction? Well, ideally, it's in the direction of the thoughts that you'd like to think, the thoughts that you genuinely do believe, thoughts that are genuinely helpful for you, and the thoughts that are true. You know, most of our thoughts are not true. Most of our thoughts are just like this chaotic mess of negativity. And that negative momentum, like I said, creates this sort of momentum effect. It's like a snowball rolling down a mountain, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it becomes really hard to stop the momentum at the bottom of the hill, right? You just get run over. And so that's how most people feel when they try and tackle the mind. It's also why therapy doesn't work for 99% of people that try therapy. Because imagine that you got this huge momentum of negative energy. And then once a week, what you're going to do is you're going to add to it. You're going to go sit down with a therapist, and maybe you feel relief because you've vented it out for a bit. But what you've done in the meantime is you've added to that ball of energy. You've increased your focus on all the negative thoughts that you're already having. You don't need any help with that, right? That's why I don't do therapy. Otherwise, I would have been a therapist. If I thought therapy worked, I would have been a therapist or something like that. But it doesn't work, because for most people, all that does is create more momentum, you know? And especially for men, this is statistics. I mean, men do not do well when we vent about our problems. We do well when we solve our problems, for the most part. Some women can get a lot of benefit from therapy through just like having that venting aspect and social aspect of being able to talk about your problems, because usually that's helpful, just to get it off your chest. But for the average person who's already bombarded by negative thoughts, going and sitting and talking solely about your negative thoughts out loud to someone else for an hour just adds to the momentum. So we have to stop the momentum, right? We want to create that massive snowball effect, but for a positive direction, for a direction that's actually going to take us towards our goals and dreams, that's actually going to improve our lives, going to improve how we feel, going to improve how we think, going to improve how we physically operate. I mean, our physiology as well, right? Like I said, stress is a killer. It's the number one killer, right? No one takes more lives than stress. So we need to create a positive momentum. And one of the fastest ways of doing that is through meditation. Meditation allows you to stop the momentum for just a few moments. And there's a sort of residual effect that comes from a meditation, right? When you meditate regularly for a long period of time, you start to capitalize on that effect. It's sort of like the story of the bamboo, right? The way that bamboo grows is you water it every day, every day, every day. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then a few years later, shoots up, right? Massive in 1 year. And so meditation and the momentum that comes from training your brain and training your mind is it's a residual process. So you need to stick with it. And the point of meditation is not to do some dingy app, listen to some dingy audio. You know, that's all garbage and nonsense. The point of meditation is not to do more things or think about more things. Think about your breathing and think about how you feel in your body and think about your thoughts. And no. The point of meditation is to drop all that nonsense completely for just a few moments. And what that does is it relieves the mind a little bit. It relaxes some of that pressure for a moment. And the more you do that, the longer that period of time afterwards gets to where you feel relaxed, you feel calm. And I mean, to be honest, the main benefit of meditation is not some mental game, but it's rather the physiological shift that happens. Your heart rate drops. Your gray matter in your brain starts to increase, right? You start to literally create new neural pathways in your brain that allow positive connections as opposed to the negative patterns that you already have in your brain. On top of that, your cortisol drops dramatically, and the immune boosting components of your body start to increase. So even if you don't do it for your mind, do it for your body, because it's very, very beneficial. We know this with data, science, neuroscience, the effects of meditation and how that reduces your likelihood of any sort of stress-related illness, stress-related disease, and early death. Okay? And this is the number one cause, by the way, of the people that live the longest in the world. You take the common denominators between all the blue zones and all the areas of the world where people live for however long, 100 plus years, they're all eating different things. They all sort of have different lifestyles, but the common denominator is that they're not stressed. They're not overwhelmed and bombarded with stress. And I'm going to go deeper into stress in future videos, but I really wanted to hammer on this point, right? These are the two processes to overcome and begin to, create a better relationship with your mind so that you're not overwhelmed by these automatic negative thoughts. This is how you exterminate the ants, okay? You need to question. You need to question the thoughts, and you need to give yourself permission to not believe the negative thoughts. And then through cultivating a meditative practice, what you're doing is it's not like you're trying to get in the way, but rather what you're doing is you're getting into the witness state, right? This is what is talked about in sort of the Eastern literature, Zen, Buddhism, that sort of thing, the witness consciousness, the higher awareness, however you want to call it, whatever you want to say it is, I am, presence. It is the, who you really are is the individual, the being, whatever you want to call yourself, that is able to observe the monkey mind, right? That's able to observe the fact that these negative thoughts are rambling. And if you can observe, which is why you should question these negative thoughts and why you should not believe every negative thought that comes across your mind, by doing so, you start to disassociate yourself from that. And that's very, very important. Because the more you do that, the more you realize, hey, I really am not these thoughts. So what's going on here, right? And then you start to question it. You start to understand the mind a little bit more. And you realize it's games. And you stop playing them. Because you'll never win against the mind. It's not about battling the mind. It's not about even really, I use this term conquer mind. But the real way of conquering mind is to not try and play the game of the mind. It's to understand the large, gist of how the mind works, but it's really to opt out. It's to be the witness. It's to say, I'm not going to believe every negative thought. I'm not going to believe all these sort of nonsensical delusions and neurosis that emerges from you, right? And so believing your thoughts and believing your mind is a recipe for disaster. We want to create positive forward momentum in our life in all areas, right? We want to improve and grow and expand. It's not about playing these stupid mind games, but rather it's about questioning these automatic thoughts. And by doing so and building a meditative practice, all it takes is 5-10 minutes a day. I mean, everyone's got 10-15 minutes in the morning, right? All you got to do is you don't need an app, you don't need headphones, you don't need a little blindfold or anything like that. You don't need any of that. In fact, it's just a waste of your time and money. It doesn't get you the results that meditation gets you, to where you actually have a calm mind, your cortisol drops and all that. It gets your mind distracted. The point of meditation is to have a moment where you don't think. Eventually you can get there. You can. People have done it, right? Where you don't think. You just let go, your pure awareness for a few moments. And then you get back into your little gist. But what you take with you from meditation is the awareness that I'm the witness here. I'm the one watching it. I'm not this crazy voice. Negative. For my clients, I always try and get them to visualize and hear their inner dialogue, especially the negative one, as a sort of like nagging, gross, sort of voice, right? Because it helps you to disassociate from that and be able to maintain that witness state, to observe it. When you're the observer, you can make changes. When you're not, when you believe that you are the voice, how do you can't change, because it's basically saying you're not in control, right? It's not like you're consciously saying, you suck, you're ugly, you're horrible, right? No, this is happening automatically. So if you identify with that, then you're saying that my life's out of control. My thoughts are out of my control. All these things are out of my control. It's not true. What is true is that you're the observer. You're the witness. You're someone who's able to see the mental delusions of the mind and then make changes as a result of that. So in order to squash the ants, you need to question them. You need to question whether this is genuinely true. Most of it is not. 99.99% of the negative thoughts are not true, and they'll never happen. And you don't need to believe them. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? You don't need to believe it. Okay? So what do I do? Well, you just listen. You don't even have to listen, really, but you just observe. You're just like, okay, it's great. You're ugly. It's great, doesn't matter. You don't matter. And then what you do is you shift, you practice strengthening your focus and your attention. That's what meditation does, right? It strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which is our focusing part of our brain that allows us to focus for long periods of time. If you're distracted, my favorite remedy is you just stare at a wall for 10-15 minutes a day. You do that building up to an hour, and your prefrontal cortex will be better and more spick and span than 99% of people on the planet. So, that being said, to wrap up here, in order to squash the negative thoughts, it's not about attacking the mind. It's not about battling the mind. It's not about trying to, overcome the mind even. It really is just about understanding how the mind works. And in doing so, you need to understand who you are truly, which is the witness, the observer, the one watching these thoughts go down. You need to say, hey, is this even true? What that does is it causes the mind to go, aha, you caught me, and then you can start to cultivate a better relationship with your mind and leverage that. And just don't believe every negative thought that comes through your mind. What if this goes bad? What if this goes bad? What if this person doesn't get back to me? What if this happens? What if it all crashes and burns on me? It's like, you know how much mental, emotional, time, and spiritual energy, all forms of energy, physical energy, it's exhausting to do that, to play that game. So just don't. Opt out. And then the second component is by creating a meditative practice. By learning to, for a few moments, just let go. Just be the observer. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to think about anything. You don't need to, your mind doesn't need to go here or there. You're just here. You're just here. And you're just focusing on here. And every time your mind drifts, you bring it back to here. Every time you drift here, you go back to here. Negative, back to here. Oh, I gotta, back to here, right? And that is the process. And in doing so, you start to train your brain. You start to create a habitual state of momentum that will literally rewire your mind. Okay, it starts to drip into your subconscious until eventually subconscious takes hold and it creates that momentum for you. But you need to tend to the garden of your mind. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and make sure you like and subscribe, and I look forward to being able to share more videos with you. Stay tuned.